for Elliot Kay?
He's obviously thinking about post rugby life.
Is, yeah.
And it's a noble profession. But just from a pure playing point of view, I'm very pleased to have a player of Elliot Kay's quality back at Bradford. And the fact that we can kind of accommodate him in our part-time way at the moment, I'm very happy about that indeed.
Yeah, it's because he's played most weeks for Salford this season so far, and it's not been it's not been a substandard performer, and
no.
He was very good in London's year back in Super League. That earned him a deal at Salford last year when he played well when he had the chances as well. And you've got to think, even part-time, he'll be keeping himself in good nick, and he'll be a very good player for the Bradford Bulls.
Yeah, he was always at least a 7 out of 10 player for me. Whenever I see him, he's a very hard worker.
Yeah.
Bringing the ball out and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, very happy about that.
A little bit more mature leadership as well in that squad, because you've got immature leadership at the moment.
Yeah, we are quite young.
Oh no, I meant from people who argue with refs rather than rather than get anything else. No, but it is. Yeah, you're right. It's a young squad, and Elliot Kay is, he's captain at Wales, isn't he? Is an experienced guy who'll be a good influence around the dressing room, you would think, as well for Bradford. Great move for the club, and good move for him, setting himself up long term.
Yeah, definitely. So, in COVID news, Sunday's Betfred Championship match between Halifax and Sheffield was postponed due to an outbreak, the Rugby Football League have announced. So 2 members of Sheffield's playing staff returned positive tests, and a further 5 were deemed to be close contacts. The fixture will be rearranged for the weekend of June 5th and 6th, which is one of the 2 available slots for rearrangements in the Championship this year.
Do you think a little bit worrying? Because it's been, it was September, I think, last time we had Super League, maybe early October, Super League games suspended because of COVID outbreaks. So is there some concern here?
It doesn't necessarily, you still get thousands of cases a day at the moment. In terms of testing and stuff like that. So it was inevitable, I suppose, that it would happen, and this is why you put these rearrangement slots in. So it didn't strike me massively as a problem. I think it's one of those things that I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen in Super League this year at some point. I think it will happen, just hopefully not as often as it did last year.
Okay. York have signed young halfback Mackie Lewis on a 1-month loan deal from Hull KR. The 19-year-old has made 13 appearances for Hull KR since making his first team debut for the club in 2019. Lewis also enjoyed a loan spell with Newcastle Thunder that year, 2019, scoring 7 tries this many games for the North East club. He seemed to have an impact for York on his debut at the weekend, so good luck to him.
Yep, so York have also signed young Wigan forward James Mcdonald on a 2-week loan. 21-year-old back row or centre came through the ranks at Wigan and made his first team debut last season.
I think it'll be good for James Mcdonald to get some game time playing against, physical players, playing in the second row, where is his best position. So good luck to him on his loan.
Yep.
Halifax forward Paul Brearley has hung up his boots so he can focus on commitments away from the game. The 6'7" back rower joined the Panthers from Batley ahead of the 2020 campaign. Brearley had agreed to join Toronto for 2021, but their failed bid to regain readmission to Super League saw him sign on with part-time side Halifax again for this year. But he made 3 appearances for Halifax at the start of the year, but has now decided to call time on his rugby league career to focus on his work commitments away from rugby league. So someone else thinking about their long-term future rather than short-term game time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Dewsbury have confirmed the signing of Zach Mccoomb on a short-term deal from fellow Championship side Halifax. The former Siddle amateur joined the Panthers in the off-season, but will now go out on loan for 2 weeks to get more game time.
Yep, and Scotland international Oscar Thomas will remain at Whitehaven for the rest of the season following a successful trial period. The 27-year-old halfback joined the Championship side on a one-month trial and made his debut in their Challenge Cup defeat to Widnes. Thomas has won 11 caps for Scotland and will be looking to play in his second World Cup for them later this year.
Yeah, and therefore he needs to play. So that's good. So the Wigan Warriors women have announced 3 additions to their squad for 2021 with the signings of Lisa Campbell, Abe Etok and Freya Helen.
Yeah, Lisa Campbell's experienced former New Zealand international. Abe Etok, people might remember her name because she played for Leeds and she scored a try in the 2019 Grand Final, I think. But she is from Wigan, so a hometown club at long last. And Freya Helen is a Union convert who did play for Wigan back in the Wigan's first Women's Super League campaign, but then has had some time out of the game and is back. There's a bit more exposition around those signings in the women's game. In the American game, New York Freedom co-owner and coach Mark Offerdahl will play for the club in the new North American Rugby League competition this year. The 33-year-old prop played for Manly Sea Eagles at junior level before experiencing Rugby League in Europe with Carcassonne, North Wales, London and Sheffield. Offerdahl was born and raised in Queensland but qualifies to play for the USA through his father, who served in the US Army. Offerdahl has won 11 caps for the USA and represented the United States in 2 World Cups.
And in more NARL news, the West Coast Conference has been postponed until next year. They said they've been unable to secure the high level of insurance they feel is necessary to ensure all the players are adequately covered while playing in the newly formed competition. So as a result, Austin Armadillo, Las Vegas Blackjacks, Phoenix Venom, Portland Loggers, our favourites, San Diego Swell and San Francisco Rush will not play in the league until 2022.
I mean, I guess it's hard to get insurance on players that don't exist. So that was probably the biggest challenge. It was always optimistic to get that competition off the ground this year with teams that, some of which didn't even have social media presence, let alone, a staff and a playing roster. So whatever reason they say it might be, I just think it's realistic and sensible, and hopefully, they don't sit around twiddling their thumbs and they actually take active steps to get these teams up to scratch for next year in all ways, be it getting insurance or be it having a playing squad and a coaching staff, and also Portland Loggers merchandise for us to buy.
Yes.
And finally, not really news. Well, at least it's not news yet, so we're going to talk about these things later on, probably. But we've had some listener views in on these stories, so we'll cover them. So, EFC78JU got in touch on a couple of Warrington-related rumours. One of them is Oliver Holmes, who's close to a move to the wire for the 2022 season. And EFC said it will be a decent move by Darryl Powell if he brings in Oliver Holmes for next season, as he scores the tries and gets the possession you want him to. The try he got against his linked club was quite a skillful one as well. Alas, a good one for the grounding if it happens. Can't wait for him to play at the HJ in Primrose and Blue. And it looks like Jake Truman has kind of poured a bit of cold water on his rumoured move to the wire, and EFC says it does not look like Truman and Powell are going to reunite at the Halliwell Jones Stadium next season. Wire, as he wants to stay at Castleford Tigers, and they have rejected the offer for now. Yeah, lots of players have come out and said, that they're happy doing the job where they are, or they're under contract where they are, or what have you, and haven't ended up playing for that team the following season. The one thing for Cass is I don't think they have to sell, do they? They don't have to sell like back in the Darryl Clark probably had to be sold days of 5 years or so ago.
No, and I think obviously Radford will be, making his decisions about the squad for next year, and obviously they've made some moves already. People like, there's no doubt they'd want to keep hold of Truman. I mean, I think that's an obvious thing to say.
Yeah.
But obviously the price has to be right, doesn't it? And in terms of what contract does he want to sign, what's his long-term value, that kind of thing. Every player has a price, and it depends whether Wire are prepared to pay it, I would say.
A little bit surprising, Ollie Holmes being linked with Wire. You'd think Curry and Hughes are kind of established as the starters in the back row, and Holmes doesn't break in there, does he? So it's he's going to be pushing himself to try and get a first team spot in that Warrington side. He must be relying on the goodwill of his friend Powell.
Yeah, I always think it's a bit weird when coaches take players with them. I really do. It doesn't strike me as being particularly logical in many cases, because you go into a completely different circumstances, aren't you?
You are. You want some culture setters, don't you? But it's not like they go into a different competition with a squad that's not already in place, is it? And, it'd be more important for Darryl Powell to get Mike Cooper, Chris Hill, Jack Hughes and Ben Curry to set the culture than bring in a bunch of forwards over from and then that feed down to the more junior players in the squad, so that Aribi Doro puts the betting slip away, for example, and rather than bringing Ollie Holmes in from the outside to try and set a culture, of course, of party boats on the Balearic coast.
Well, I mean, if you want to set a trophy-winning culture, I think you probably need to be looking elsewhere.
Okay, thanks everyone who got those fan views in on the news and otherwise there, though. Great stuff from you guys. Shout out, of course, to BBC Sport Rugby League pages, totalrl.com, loverugbyleague.com. Those guys provide the stories for us to comment on, so do keep your eyes on all those pages. Give them clicks, and yeah, they'll keep providing content that we can discuss. Okay, excellent stuff. We're now going to move on to match reviews. So round 6 of Super League happened, I would say this weekend, but most of it happened on Monday night. So yeah, this is one where we're going to rely on you lot, and if there's a game where we've got no fan views, don't be surprised if we don't talk about it very long, St Helens and Salford fans. But we're going to start with a game that most of us have had the opportunity to see, and a bit of time to sit back and reflect on, although not enough time apparently for the Super League website to get a match report up with any stats for this match. But Friday night saw a very tense, close and controversial encounter between Leeds and Wakefield. It was 10-6 to Wakefield at half time, but Leeds came back to win 15 points to 13 with a Robert Hicks awarded penalty in golden point extra time. No stats, as just sort of alluded to. Only a caution for Luke Briscoe out of the disciplinary for this one for a dangerous throw late on in the match, but we did get a few fan views.
We did. So Matt Speakman says, it's always a shame when such a great and exciting game is decided by a referee call. Ball carrying arm not on the floor, and he hadn't shouted held, so it shouldn't have been a play of the ball rather than a pen. I might be wrong, but that's what I thought the rule was. Having said that, Harrell's run was great and deserved to settle the match.
Callum Percy said, although it did come down to a close game, Wakefield really do need to get a few wins under the belt, because if Lee get a win or two, they're in serious danger. Although Wakey will probably beat Wigan, as it's our bogey team, is what he said. And secondly, to every other player that's taken a drop goal attempt, learn off Luke Gale, that was a really good composed drop goal under pressure.
Lee Whitnell says, that was a game that neither side deserved to win, and a draw was a fair result that both teams could perhaps build from. I'm not really sure on the ball steal rule, but I thought the ball carrying arm would need to be down for the tackle to be complete, and was applauding an inspired piece of defence until the ref blew for a pen. Another tough defeat for Wakey. I didn't enjoy watching Chris Chester walk off the field.
And Tom Andrews said, 2 shite sides, 1 shite ref with the least exciting end to a golden point, forgetting Wire and Hull. Chesney looked at... No, that was more exciting because it was hilarious missed drop goal after missed drop goal, wasn't it? Chesney looked a broken man after the game. Would be ironic if Rovers put the nail in his coffin next weekend.
And finally on this one, Fat by Rob says, Hicks, what a joke.
Well, let's talk about, let's not beat around the bush on it. Should it have been a penalty?